birthday, and you know what that means.
Hello YouTubers, this is the Noobifier. I started this new playlist and series because I have a lot more time to research and it gives me better awareness as to what's important to the community. As a content creator, that's good, right? If you missed the past ones, Community Concerns is its own playlist and you could start it and let it play, much like a podcast when you're stuck in traffic or when you're doing something else, maybe vacuuming, weeding the lawn, whatever. Just let it run in the background. Consider bookmarking it and checking in every once in a while to get caught up to date. I actually think it's very interesting to see what the community is talking about. You need to know, and I want to tell you about 2 giveaways that are funded by the Patreon backers. You can either win a Verbal Alpha Grip and Gimbal and or a Vandal Glaive Medium Fighter with lifetime insurance. Both of those are linked in the description, and at the end, be sure to enter. Be sure to tell others. It's a great way to grow the community. I do these on Tuesdays, and I try to choose the threads that are well presented and have good banter back and forth. It's up to you to comment your comments in the comments and let me know how I can tweak this new weekly segment. I'm going to also post all the links to the threads in the description, and why not? Let me know if you disagree with any of my opinions so that we can all learn. We're going to start with 3 separate threads about Squadron 42, each about a different concern, and then I'm going to present them individually and then comment on them collectively. First was a post from Ming, who posted their concern that Squadron 42, if it launches and fails, will also kill the MMO Star Citizen. Their post was a little bit more of a statement where they proclaimed that they were never interested in the single-player Squadron 42. They said they wanted it to release strong with big-name stars promoting it in a big way to juice up the hype. Game Boy summarized what we all know about Cyberpunk was that regardless if the community sees it as a flop, the game will always make bank. They basically said that something can still be successful commercially and be a community flop. Nightfangs confirmed their opinion, and I share it, that it makes good business sense for CIG to delay the launch of Squadron 42 to ensure that the PU is in a better state to capitalize on the hype to boost the MMO. That can obviously backfire, and CIG would never own up to that or address that because it would blow up and release the salt trains, right? Purposely holding back the game for business. Taj then commented that it's actually impossible for Squadron 42 to fail financially as the backers have technically paid for it. So whatever it makes on release would be pure profit and not a return of the initial investment, which is an interesting perspective. Some were excited that after the release of Squadron, the MMO would receive full development force, but then others noted that if it makes bank, CIG might be tempted to quickly push out the release of the next installation of that series rather than focus on the MMO to capitalize on its success. Some had speculated that if the money tied up in Squadron was actually CIG's investment and not crowdfunded, that there would be more pressure to release sooner, but that statement was probably meant just to get a rise out of the moderators. It's a business after all, and there's no such thing as too much money. It's all super interesting, and I'm going to move to the next 2 and then offer my thoughts. Fender committed to an unpopular position that they wished that CIG would park or abandon Squadron 42 and focus only on the MMO. 87 Picard faces and 190 replies later, yeah, not surprised that people wanted to present their opinions here. Some stated that you can't have one without the other, and ironically, all of the ships that were sold for the MMO are actually paying for Squadron 42. At that point, it was really interesting because I'd never really considered how that was interconnected. The ships pay for the tiny game, which will then pay for the big game. Dr. Phoebes brought up the original Kickstarter pitch without remembering that Chris had a big community vote to change the plan and then at the time offered one last time to refund any pledges. That vote ended up changing the core mission statement and began the stretch goals, the bloat, and the feature creep. But I had actually forgotten that the original plan for Squadron was a single player and co-op, something I no longer think is part of the plan, and I would be interested to hear if any of you think that that could be leveraged in court in the future. I'm not a lawyer, and Chris has one of the best, so I assume that everyone is just fine at CIG. Finally, we come full circle where Grey 6 simply asked the community to stop posting for the elimination of Squadron 42. They had paid to back it, and that was it. It's too late to cancel it now. And then they said, careful what you wish for. I actually don't believe that CIG would ever consider trying that. Not even as a publicity stunt. And of course, then there was a comment from Soul Raver who said, and I can't detect if they were being sincere or trolling, but it did make me giggle when I read it. They suggested that the MMO should be scrapped and all focus should be put on Squadron, which of course is not possible based on the $500 million of spaceships that are attached to the MMO. So I'm going to try to unpack all of that a little bit more. Regardless of the terms of sale or the quality of the legal team, if CIG fails to present Squadron 42 or the MMO in a timely fashion, I believe it would ruin everyone at the top and put everyone else on unemployment. It would basically wreck everything. All backer money can be seen as already being spent, so nobody would actually get anything, so let's not suggest that anymore. Launching a great Squadron 42 when the PU isn't ready may fall short of the new players' expectations and prevent that piggyback hype effect, so too soon might be too bad. Launching a great Squadron 42 too late may continue to erode the community's trust, which is less damaging to the company but still very bad. You could argue that they already have the money, so there's no incentive to keep developing quickly. But I'm going to point out that continuing to get money years after is also highly important. I'm saying that there's a balance where enough process and transparency needs to be given to the public to prevent a full meltdown. This whole "it's ready when it's ready" approach boggles my mind, because that would have killed any other company. CIG is blessed with the best, most tolerant and patient community I've ever seen anywhere. I would hope that they're able to apply a little bit of care and not losing that by repeating what happened last November and December again. I want Squadron to be good and result in hype. I hope they do what they promised, and that is to finish the MMO immediately as soon as Squadron releases, resisting the temptation to quickly bash out another chapter because people are counting on this swing of the developer power to kick the MMO into high polish. I'm going to close out by saying that it's fascinating how Spectrum seems to have been named perfectly, likely by accident. It really is a spectrum from week to week in which only one constant is that someone will present a new something to freak out over. Comment your comments on the subject in the comments. Do you feel that CIG might be purposefully delaying Squadron for a better launch to the MMO? And would you be okay with them immediately working on a sequel to Squadron if it meant better funding and thus better financially stable to continue work on the MMO at potentially a lower speed? I have a feeling I know what you're going to say about that. Next, Jarek posted the question about where Theaters of War was. They said that they're aware that nobody asked for it, but because it was pitched and now it's swept under the rug, it looks really bad for transparency and all of the other issues that go with it, and it's basically a good source of concern for them, and it's become a bit of a meme. Bad Lieutenant said not to worry about it because it was going to be released early 2020. Angel Arch said that it was Sadabald by Ilphonic, which was a really funny reference for those who have been here from the start. Someone posted a video from last April, which didn't really help very much because it was just confirming that a lot of stuff was said that it's coming out shortly and then nothing happened. And then Jarek Racin stated that it was outsourced to Firesprite to be worked on, but then Andy replied that according to Wiki, Firesprite wasn't even really engaged too much as it seemed to be listed as 2020 to be announced. Some said they don't care at all about Theaters of War. Some said that it would be a fun distraction to play while we waited for years on the PU, which is spicy. And some said that they were really upset that the dev time was wasted on it, and others said that if it was working well, they would likely choose to play it over the PU. When I went to the progress tracker, the little bars end on Q2 2022 for Theaters of War. But the general issue with this Gantt chart crap in general is that it does not include if it's done, because it only shows you that that part of the process is done. So what does that even mean, and how is that helpful, right? Is Q2 22 when it's ready for release, or is that just the next step in its evolution? Comment your comments in the comments. Do you care or not care about Theaters of War, and why? Do you think it's a bit peculiar that nothing has been said about it for over 8 months when it was supposed to be releasing 2 years ago? Next, John B. Hawkins posted that they were worried that the netcode would be the main challenge after meshed servers. They were worried that even their small team of friends that were from the same location experienced banding and desync. They experienced a situation where friends literally disappeared from their screens, but they're worried that we should be worried more about core tech. Some said that all of this would be fixed with meshed servers, and then some replied that they felt like meshing and netcode were not the same thing, and then they backed it up with facts. Fuzzy Wuzzy Bear commented that they thought that iCache was supposed to fix all of these issues, and then Angry tried to smooth things out by reposting the mesh server panel from CitizenCon. Espionage made a fantastic post that basically defines why and how meshing and netcode are unrelated. Lots of work went into a very good post, and they ended that by saying that they shared the OP's original concerns. I think this topic follows some of the other network concerns that were highlighted this week. I know that the developers just got back from holidays, but some sort of dialogue on the current plan would be great. Jag posted a super fun topic where they listed their top 5 wish list for 2022 to include salvage, stun batons, refueling, and others. I will simply ask you to post your 5 top in the comment, and if you want to see what was said, that's linked in the description. We're going to end on a second funny one, because last time there were comments that I was far too negative, or at least seemed to focus only on the negative. In my defense, Spectrum is mostly a negative place, but I'm going to try. Caitlin noticed that there may have been an oops in the store when everything was shuffled around, where the Nautilus Solstice may have been made available for sale for 30 minutes. They wanted to know if anyone managed to pick one up and if CIG instantly refunded due to the mistake. Someone noticed that there was a small spike on the tracker at that time, and then it was returned to a more flat state, which would imply that CIG may have canceled some of those sales. What are your thoughts on this? If CIG accidentally, for example, puts an Icarus CCU for sale and people bought them, do you think they should be refunded, or do you think that that should just be left alone? Comment about anything mentioned here, or even something else if you want. Thank you very much for spending your time with me. Please share the content with others, as that helps a lot. Look out for 2 opportunities to win prizes, which will be linked at the end of the video, and please be on the lookout for the Daymar Rally, which is happening this Saturday, hosted by Atmo Esport on Twitch. That's always interesting, and it gets better and better each year. Fly safe, and I'll see you in the verse.